Hello friends, and welcome back to my sewing room and my sewing channel. Now, in this video, I'm sharing a finished quilt that I have been working on. It's a 60-year-old quilt from my husband's grandmother. It's a quilt top, and I have been hand stitching it on my quilting frame. However, what I had noticed after I got started quilting the quilt together is that the end is the non-block, and if I put a binding on it, my non-blocks are not going to match up. They would actually look a little off, so I'm adding this 2.5-inch strip. I'm moving the batting and the backing out of the way and adding this 2.5-inch strip all the way around the quilt. And then when I put my binding on, my binding is also going to be the same color so that my blocks don't look offset on my non-patches. I picked up this yellow fabric from Hobby Lobby. I wanted something bright to go around the border of the quilt because Miss Maynard, 60 years ago, put this together with bright colors. And although some of it had been patched up and some of the squares had even been stitched together, every quilt just seems to have a story behind it. And as I was quilting this out on my frame and sewing it by hand, I could just see all the little pieces that she had pieced together for this quilt. Now for my batting, I used a Warm and Natural in a white because with the white fabric, I wanted to make sure that that didn't show through. And I also used a white thread to sew throughout the quilt. I used a white sheet that I had purchased from Goodwill for $1.99 as the backing for this quilt, and I'll give you a close-up of the quilt and the back of the quilt also, because I love seeing the stitches in the back of the quilt as much as I do in the front of the quilt. Now most fabrics come in like 44 inches, so I do need to put an add-on on my 2.5-inch border strip here. And I'm going to show you in just a moment how I connect these two ends to where they're not bulky, not a straight stitch across, but a stitch at an angle. And then that way it's not bulky when you do your binding or you do any of your connecting fabrics. But I'll show you a close-up of that here in just a moment. Now that I have my border all the way around my quilt, I want to think about the binding. And this is a 2-inch strip. And out of my 44-inch, I've got 4 strips. And I'm just going to press this in half, fold it over. And I know there's a little gadget you can get that will run them through, but this is just as easy for me. I'm sitting here in my sewing room and I don't starch it, I just press it. And I'm rolling up my binding as I go. In this section, this is, let me cut this thread off, just extra thread, but I'm going to show you a close-up of how I got my seams at an angle, and I'm just going to press this open, fold it over in half, and press it again. And that way you don't have that bulk if it was just cut straight, and you would have all that bulk. It sort of spreads that seam away from each other and there's no bulk at all. But I'll show you how I did that here in just a moment. Moving back over to my machine, I've got 2 small strips here, and I'm going to show you how this is done. When you're combining your 2 strips, you're placing them face to face, and one side is 1/4 inch up here, and then 1/4 inch here, and then you're going to stitch from this corner to this corner. So I'm going to take it to my machine, and I'm not back stitching. I have a very, very small stitch. If you were using a loose stitch, you might want to back stitch on each corner. Cut your thread. And this is what you have. You can't hardly see the seam, but there's a seam from corner to corner. Take your scissors and cut just above the seam about 1/4 inch, and then trim off the ears. When you straighten it up, this is what you have. Take it to your iron and press it open in the back. And then when you fold it, you don't have all that bulk. It's just so easy to do. Now that my binding is all pressed, ready to go on my quilt, I've trimmed the edges of my quilt, and the last step is the binding. I like to make sure that I have plenty of bobbin thread ready to go in my machine so that I don't have to stop and take the time to thread the bobbins. So I have these extra little bobbins that I had purchased from Amazon.com, and that way it doesn't stop me from completing my work all at one time. I'm starting to add my binding, and I will actually open, and I won't start right at the edge. I will move in about 3 or 4 inches so that will, when I meet back up at the beginning of this, then I will show you how I put that together. So I'm going to open up this and just do my 1/4 inch stitching all the way around the quilt. I do miter the corners. I'm not the best at it. I'm not the greatest. And I would recommend that you go watch somebody else do the miter edges. But I do the best that I can. These are quilts for me. I'm not doing them for anybody else. And they're not perfect. I like them just the way they are. After sewing the binding all on the back side, I'm flipping it over to the front side, and I am folding under the binding and then just sewing 1/4 inch away from the inside left of the binding. And I take my time during this time and just make sure that my stitches don't run off. And here I am at the corner. I do my own process of mitering my corners. They're not the greatest, but these quilts aren't made for somebody else, they're for the family. And although I'm not the greatest at doing my miter corners, I'm okay with it. I would definitely recommend, I do like, I think it's Sew Becca. She has a video out on how to do those miter corners for binding your quilt, and I really love how she explains it. But I'm just not the best, and I'm not going to show you how I do mine. Everybody sews a little bit differently. And I'm definitely one that just likes to sew the way that I know to sew. And most of mine are not precise or precision cuts or stitching, but I love a homemade quilt. Here's my honey holding it up. This was made by his grandmother, Grandma Maynard. And here it is all stitched up. We're really going to enjoy this quilt for many years to come. And here is the back of it. And all of the inside portion of the quilt was hand quilted on my frame. And I did stitch this out in thread and folded the edges of this little circle under, and then just stitched this on the back of the quilt. This portion of the video is our Share a Quilt story. And you guys remember Janice had shared her mother's quilt. First time she finished it. She let me know that it is still hanging out in her living room, and there was a gorgeous picture of her and her mother. But when she went to visit her brother up in Indiana, she found that there was another unfinished quilt in the family. And here is a picture of that quilt. And Janice, it does look like it was hand stitched. Those are not even stitches. They're small stitches, but I do believe that it was hand pieced together. Now, my suggestion is go ahead and take and cut all those loose threads and iron to the dark side if you can, and that will help when you sandwich that together, that your threads and your dark fabric doesn't show through the front of your quilt. And Janice, we hope that you will share that finished quilt when you get it done. We're looking forward to it. If you have a quilt that you would like to share with us, in the description box below is my email, and you can send me your story and your pictures, and I'll share it here on my channel. That's it for this video, and I hope in some way I have inspired you to work on your own projects. And until my next video, I will see you then. Have a wonderful week, and God bless.